Well, meantime, the Fox News at Night Common Sense Department is fascinated by these newly released numbers dealing with, quote, net negative tax income migration. That's a fancy phrase for states with a big outflow of high income earners and therefore a big outflow of dollars. Common Sense is not surprised to learn the state losing the most money is California, which in 2021 lost nearly $350 million. That's bad news for a state with a $32 billion deficit. And that does not take into account the domino effect, meaning high-income people usually have a high impact on residential and commercial real estate. And, of course, the study points out the biggest reason high-income earners leave is because of high-income taxes. California has the highest income taxes, followed by New York, which reminds Common Sense, New York just happens to be the number 2 state for outflow migration, losing $299 million. And the winner of these outflow sweepstakes is, Florida, which in 2021 gained a lot of new residents and gained $12 billion in new revenue. A big number for a state with no income tax. Common Sense is convinced that when you rely almost solely on high-income earners to pay the bills, like California, it's akin to drawing an inside straight where even if you occasionally win, it's a bad bet. Let's bring in Reform California Chairman Carl DeMaio. Carl, great to have you on as always. I guess when you have 1% of the population paying for half the taxes, you tend to get yourself in a bit of a pickle sometimes.
Yeah, when I tell people that in California we are so dependent on that 1%, where it's 50%, sometimes even 2/3 of our revenue, income tax revenue, coming from that 1%, they're astonished. What that study also shows is that while we're seeing wealthy residents flee California and New York, guess who's replacing them? Poorer residents, which means at the time that you're losing tax increment, you're also seeing a surge in a demand on welfare programs and public assistance. So this is the perfect storm in California, and they don't seem to be waking up in Sacramento and realizing that they're killing the goose that laid the golden egg.
Yep, and the remedy, of course, is always, we just got to raise the taxes a little bit more. Well, deadline day is almost coming because for about 18 months now, you haven't had a lot of renters in Los Angeles paying their rent. KTLA Los Angeles writes the quoting here, LA renters may face eviction as COVID back rents payments deadline approaches. Going on, many renters said they simply don't have the ability to pay thousands of dollars in the next 24 hours and that they are starting to worry about being evicted by landlords claim they have been waiting for the money for 18 months and can't wait much longer. I mean, you feel bad for the people who may be evicted, but they've been living rent-free for 18 months, and the people who actually have to pay the mortgages on those buildings don't have any money, is it?
It's actually worse than 18 months. If you take a look at who's being affected today, which is August 1st is the first milestone. These are people who haven't been paying rent, in some cases, since March of 2020. So we're talking 3.5 years.
Right.
And so in February of 2024, that's where people not paying rent from October 2021 forward will then have to catch up. Look, how much money did we give out during COVID? All these checks were flying all around, trillions of dollars, all this bailout money, and even the unemployment rate continues to be pretty decent. So anyone can get a job. We have businesses asking people to come and take jobs. So who has the excuse for why they can't pay rent? The reality is that when the politicians tell people they don't have to pay rent, that's when they decide not to send the check in. And so who's really to blame? I would argue it's the politicians that enabled bad behavior for the past 3.5 years, hurting both sides, both the renters as well as the landlords.
Gavin Newsom thinks he did such a fantastic job during COVID, you know, the school shutdowns and the masks and all the like, that he's now starting a new plan. It's called the SMARTER plan. And SMART, by the way, SMARTER stands for shots, masks, awareness, readiness, testing, education, and RX. All because California, really, I mean, they killed it during the pandemic.
If you read the actual press release and all the documents associated with this, it's exactly what you just described. California is bragging about how well they did during the pandemic.
Right.
Let's remember, their schools were closed longer than any other state. Their students have had the largest drop-off in academic achievement.
Right.
And when you take a look at all the other effects that the pandemic has had, the homeless crisis, the drug crisis, the mental health crisis, all of these things were exacerbated because he did a poor job as governor. This is like some guy who has failed abysmally and he wants the gold star. He wants the participation trophy and he's awarding it to himself. Nobody should benchmark against California. It wasn't SMARTER. It was a real lousy outcome.
And I love the tagline, and we can use this program not just for COVID and pandemics, we can use it for anything. Just put a mask on. That's the whole thing. Carl, great to see you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.